I have often said to all three of my kids, and I'm sure I'll say it to him again today, and it's something that I've always prayed that none of my children ever have to go through what we as a country went through that day, and we as a fire service went through that day. When I think back on 9/11, there were two. It impacted me in two different ways. One, as a member of the fire service, knowing that we lost so many. We didn't know how many at the time, but knowing that we lost so many. And also, as an American. Hi, Chris Mc Loone here with Fire Apparatus and Emergency Equipment. Welcome to this edition of our podcast. This one's going to be a little bit of a commentary. Again, I usually wait until the end of the month before I do these, but today is September 9th, 2024. I'll get more into why that's kind of important to me today in a little bit. But of course, if it's September 9th, we're coming up on the anniversary of 9/11. Of course, 9/11 2001, the 23rd anniversary. And while I will get a little bit into that in just a little bit, I wanted to talk about just an experience I had over the weekend. Now, after I participated in a stair climb, I did a short video on social media, just saying, I could try to say something inspirational, but it's really something that's personal for everyone, and I hold to that. But I would like to talk about the experience a little bit, just about the experience overall, just in terms of the day and how it went. The stair climb was the 9/11 Memorial Stair Climb that takes place at Lambeau Field. The folks at Pierce Manufacturing had invited the fire service media to a media event at Pierce, and as part of that, invited us to participate in the stair climb. And personally, I jumped at the chance. It's not something I had ever done before. For whatever reason, scheduling, however it has worked, anytime there has been a stair climb that I could possibly attend, I was not able to. So this was a tremendous opportunity. When I went through the process of getting the tag, I went through the first wave, which I'll talk a little bit about in a minute. But when I went through that, we were flipping through the cards, through their cards, badges for firefighters, to see who we were going to be climbing for. And I actually came across Andy Fredericks. And I thought that was appropriate because of who he was, because of the relationship that we here at FDIC have had with him over the years. And I just thought it was appropriate to do that. I never had the opportunity to meet Andy, sadly. I had just started as fire engineering's web editor when the events of 9/11 occurred. So I never had an opportunity to meet him. But I did climb for him the other day. It was a very sobering event, which you would expect. But it's interesting what comes back to you at these things. And as the event began, some audio from that day was played, and that audio was not only of what was going on at the scene, but also of news reports. And I was talking to someone out there about how, believe it or not, I first heard about what was happening in Lower Manhattan on the Howard Stern show. It was a regular Tuesday for me. I was heading up to the office. I was fire engineering's web editor at that time, and I was going to the office twice a week. I was primarily remote, but going to the office twice a week, which was probably about a 2 to 2.5 hour, sometimes 2 hour, 45-minute drive. So being stuck in traffic was nothing new, and that's where I was. I was on the Garden State Parkway, stuck in traffic. And once I heard about that on the Howard Stern show, I switched over to 1010 Winds, which was the news radio for New York City. And some of the audio that was played on this past Saturday at the stair climb was of 10-10 winds. And so, I heard, I was hearing things again that, honestly, I hadn't heard for quite some time. And it really did bring me back to what was happening that day. And I've talked about that before, and I'm not going to get too much into that, because that day was unlike anything I certainly have ever experienced. But as I said, those recordings, were very were brought back some memories of that day. The weather just this past weekend was kind of like it was on 9/11. It was cool. 9/11 actually, 2001. The weather was crystal clear. It was actually, it started off as a really good summer day, late summer day. When you consider the weather that day, it was clear, and so was it this past weekend. It was cool. Now it was a little. It was weird the other day. Outside of the stadium where we started, it was in the shade. The sun hadn't come up over the stadium just yet. And it was shady, and it was in the low to mid 40s, and it was breezy. So I was dressed for the climb. I was not dressed for the coolness. So it was pretty chilly in the beginning there. As we walked into the stadium, and the first wave walked behind the bagpipers, as we got into the stadium and into the stands, the sun was over it was shining into the bowl, and it became very warm. Just little things that you notice. It was very quiet during the climb. As I said, I went in the first wave. What is significant about that is that as we were coming in, and as the waves behind us were coming, and by the way, the wave is 343 people. Each wave had 343, and so as my wave got in there, I'm sure the second wave was starting to come through as we were there. It was very quiet. Not a lot of conversation. There were people posted from Pierce all around. I'm encouraging us to keep going. I mean, it is not an easy climb, I would say. The steps are of varying heights depending on where you are in the stands. As you get closer to the field, they're shorter. As you get higher up, they are higher. And so you're working to do this. But it was very quiet. But then you hear that first bell ring, and suddenly it just takes on a whole other feel. That first bell that rings, it's at the equivalent of 78 stories. That first bell that was rung for that firefighter, and all of us, as we got there, we would ring that bell and announce the name of the firefighter for whom we were climbing. And it really that first ring really breaks up everything. Breaks up wherever your mind was at that time. It really brings it all home exactly what we're doing there. And everybody is of varying speeds. So in the beginning, the bell was a little bit more infrequent. As the day went on, the rings got closer together, and it was really it was really special. It was a special time to do that, and to be walking through and thinking about what was happening that day as things went on. I've talked before about where I was when each tower came down. I was in the office, and it was different for me because what I'll say is that my job that day was to do my best. I've said before, we're not talking about today's internet. We're talking about being a web editor and being on dial-up. If there was any video available, and I can't even remember if there was at that time, you needed to be at work if you were going to see it, because the work had the T1 line coming in. Some people will know what I'm talking about when I say T1 line. But that was my job that day. My job that day was to report on this as best I could, and that was what I did. So so that was what we were doing. So I was at the office when they both came down. The office closed shortly thereafter, and I made my way back home. At which point I was basically working the rest of the day. There were a lot of different things that you just didn't hear. I live not far from what was an active naval base, and suddenly, I mean, my office has been, it still is, in the basement of my house. And I was sitting there probably 7 or 8 at night, still trying to keep up with everything that was happening. And we heard jets, very, very loud, very, very low, flying over, no doubt going toward Willow Grove Naval Air Base. So it was all these things were kind of rushing back, as I participated in that climb. But I will say this, and it was something I mentioned the other day in the video that I did then. And again, I mean, I've talked a lot about, like what was around me, sort of what I was thinking about. I'm not going to get too much into, the profound effects that something like a stair climb, what you're doing as a member of the fire service, has on you. But I will say this, I rang that bell, and I'm often teased a little bit at the firehouse, down the street there, because I'm always fighting for the bell on any new rig that we've gotten over the past few years. I'm always fighting for the bell. I remember what it was like as a kid, watching the 4th of July parade go by, waving to the firefighters on the truck, and the officer on the truck ringing the bell for me. I remember how that made me feel, and I remember how I felt when I was doing it. Whenever I've done it as someone sitting in the right hand seat of that truck during parades, and just the look on a kid's face when you ring that bell and they know they're doing it for you, it's priceless. But I will say this, that ringing a bell took on a whole new meaning for me that day, and I no doubt, and I know I can say it for a fact because it just happened yesterday. We had a fire call, and as we were backing into the firehouse, I rang that bell 3 times, and I know for sure that and whenever I ring a bell from here on in, it will be with those 343 in mind. So that was the stair climb. I recommend, if anybody has an opportunity to do it, it really is a very solemn event. You might not think it would be, but it really is. It's very, very quiet in that stadium. Very, very little conversation going on. Most everybody's just thinking about that day, thinking about who they're honoring with that climb. And of course, all the proceeds do go to the National Fallen Firefighters Association. So keep that in mind as well. Now, 9/11. I talked a little bit about 9/11 now. There, again, it's different for everyone. And as I said in the beginning, it's September 9th, 2024 right now. And why that and why that's significant for me is that today is my son's 21st birthday. And I've started to think about the proximity of the second anniversary of 9/11 to his birthday. It was just 2 days before, the second anniversary, and how fresh that still was in everyone's minds. When you think about it, you think about, generally how it works these days, or back then. I shouldn't say these days because it's been 21 years, but back then, I mean, we spent 2 nights in the hospital. So I returned home with him on September 11th. It's kind of an interesting juxtaposition about what happened that day, and here we are, bringing our son back home. But I have often said to all three of my kids, and I'm sure I'll say it to him again today, and it's something that I've always prayed that none of my children ever have to go through what we as a country went through that day, and we as a fire service went through that day. When I think back on 9/11, there were two. It impacted me in two different ways. One as a member of the fire service, knowing that we lost so many. We didn't know how many at the time, but knowing that we lost so many, and also as an American, this attack that had taken place on our soil. But I would be remiss if I did not remember to say that we also, and even the other day during that Memorial Stair Climb, we are adding names to those we have lost as a result of 9/11 every year. This year, we're adding 32 more names of those who have died of September 11th related illnesses. So the after effects of that day continue to reverberate not only through the FDNY, but through the fire service as we continue to lose more of our brethren to 9/11. And I think that's I think the message, we will never forget. Yes, there is distance between us, between now and then. We're 23 years since then, but we will never forget. And it was interesting. Someone asked me if I knew the person who I was climbing for, and I explained that I knew of Andy Fredericks. I did not know him personally, and the person said it must be very, very. I don't know the word that she used, but to walk for someone or to climb for someone who you knew has a whole different effect on this. And she said that that connection must be totally different. And what I said to her was that in reality, every one of us in the fire service is connected by virtue of being in the fire service to those who we lost that day. And when we talk about never forgetting, and when we talk about, the fact that there is a distance between now and then, that connection today, no matter where you are in the fire service, is as strong today as it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago. If you are a 2-year member or a 22-year member or a 20-year member, that connection is there, and it is a very strong connection that we all have to those we lost that day. So I think I'm just really going to end it there. Please do not forget to think about those that we continue to lose. They are suffering a great deal as they move through these illnesses. So are their loved ones. Not only did they have to live through it, but they are continuing to live through those effects of that day today. So again, this has been Chris Mc Loone with Fire Apparatus and Emergency Equipment. Have a good one. Stay safe, and please remember to never forget.